This is the 12.3-inch infotainment system that you're going to find inside of the Hyundai Kona. Now, technically, there are two different options that are available. So it's going to be one with this setup without factory navigation. And then there's also one with factory navigation, but that's going to be an N-Line Ultimate or a limited trim level specific option. Otherwise, the screen's going to look the exact same for all of the other trim levels of the vehicle. There's one really cool benefit, though, about this screen specifically when you look at this setup. And that's that, yeah, sure, it doesn't have factory navigation, but it's got wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay support. And then when you've got one with a wireless charge pad as well, they just go hand in hand together so nicely. But I'll walk you through that as we get through. So this is the home screen that you're typically going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. Along the very top there, you can reorder the menu order. You can adjust profile settings. So if you want to, you can set up a unique profile. Where that comes into play is if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can select through. And one of the big benefits there is that it's going to remember any phones that are connected. It's going to remember your presets and all of your other saved options as well for that unique driver. So if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you want to be able to make sure that you go through profile settings. There's also the option for the online manual. So all you're going to do is pull up your phone and you're going to scan the QR code, and that's going to pull up your digital owner's manual instead. Back home, you've also got this little bar that you can swipe down in order to turn the display off if you want to. Swiping down, there's an available split screen. You can adjust the brightness as well. And then you can also enter quiet mode. So one of the big benefits of quiet mode is that it's going to only play music through the front speakers of the vehicle. And then you can hide the tray from there. Along this side, it's whether or not you've got connectivity and then the current time. And then if you've got a phone that supports wireless charging, that's currently wirelessly charging. It's going to take a second there, and it should. There we go. There we go. So you can see there, when you've got a phone wirelessly charging, you're going to get a little message along the top letting you know that a phone is currently connected. As of right now, media is off, so you could easily toggle media that way if you want to by pushing the button, and then that's going to pull up all of your available media options. So FM, AM, SiriusXM, Bluetooth. This thing does actually support USB playback, but one of the downsides is that it's only going to be USB-C. So the traditional USB Type A that you probably have sitting in your pocket isn't going to work. So you have to have a little dongle to go from USB-C to USB-A, or you have to get a USB-C specifically for your data. So, but USB music is technically available there. As always, you've got Sounds of Nature, and then you can also play music through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So there are a ton of different options that are available here. But I mean, you look at Sounds of Nature. I mean, that's kind of neat. That's kind of a really neat thing. That's really neat. Honestly, like in my opinion, I do think it's useful, especially if you're a little bit more high-strung. You just want to be able to hang out in your car and just relax a little bit. So it's nice that that's available as an option. Hopping back into media for a second there are so many options available. And then you can move out to all of your available media. So you've got favorites, so all of your presets that have been saved, all of the available FM stations, AM stations, and then all of your SiriusXM stations on top of that. So what it's doing is it's looking for, like based off of your current location, what stations are available. And that's the same for AM, FM. That takes a little bit of time, but you can see there, FM's already loaded up. So if you wanted to save any of these things as a preset, all you're gonna do, push the little star button right next to any of these stations that pop up. So I'm just gonna show you some of my favorite local stations. And then if we go into favorites, it's got the 3 stations that we've saved as our presets. And then one nice thing, if you wanted to delete any of these things, that just plays, but you can also tap the star if you wanted to remove it as a preset there as well. Then you've got AM, FM, SiriusXM, and same idea with SiriusXM. So if you wanted to save out different stations there, you could. You could also live record for playback. And then if you hop into your favorites, all of your stations that you've saved are going to be saved there. And then you can dive in deeper if you wanted to be able to get rid of any stations. But you've got your category views available, or you can just go back this way instead. Hopping back home now brings you to this little setup. So same idea, you've got the option of flipping between all of the available stations there. And then if you're on FM, AM, whatever the case may be, it's going to be the same thing. So you've got indie, and then we're essentially seeking this way instead. You can also press up on the steering wheel if you wanted to be able to seek through stations that way. So you could do a press and hold in order to seek, or you can just go up and down to go through all of your available presets, so whatever you've set up, which is useful. But that's the basics of media. There's not a ton of stuff available here outside of kind of showing you this, where you can go fuller screen instead and change between all of your available stations that way, or you could swipe this way in order to get to this little setup instead. So you can kind of move across to go to different watch faces and things like that, or just up to your basic compass view or flat down compass view instead. If you had factory navigation, that would also swipe across in order to give you a split screen with factory navigation as well, which is kind of useful. Moving back home, next up is going to be adding in a phone. And as you can see right now, the vehicle name is Kona. We can change that one in a minute. I'll show you how. But you're going to start off on your phone, go into your Bluetooth settings, and we're waiting for Kona to show up. Pins match up, so we're going to pair. Allow contacts and favorites to sync. This is not my vehicle, so I'm going to say don't allow to that one, but one of the benefits is that if you're just hooking up over Bluetooth, you'd have the flexibility of having all of your contacts downloaded. So you could push the voice command prompt on the steering wheel to say, call such and such person. That's saying unsuccessful because I said no on the phone when I initially hooked it up. But the phone is technically connected, so I could dial through and things like that. I'm connected over Bluetooth right now. But one of the nice things about the screen without navigation is that it does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So do you want to use CarPlay with the Kona? Yes, we want to use that. And then from here, it says that it supports. You do have to say yes in order to be able to use it. And it'll take a second there and bam, look at that. Beautiful. Stretched across the whole screen. That looks incredible. I love it. Now that's your map application. This one in this case is going to be Waze. But along the top there, you've got your clock, your current connection level and battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was last opened. If you push this button, that brings you back to this little icon view. You can swipe across, or you can push again to get to this main screen. And same idea, you could swipe across to get to all of your different icons, back to the main view instead. But main view in CarPlay, you've got what map was open last, basic search, if you've got music playing, and then if you've got something miscellaneous going on as well. Pushing this brings you back to this screen. So it doesn't matter if you're Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze, they're not pinched to zoom on the Apple CarPlay side of things. You've got to go in and out this way in order to be able to move in that way. So if you wanted to zoom in out, you can change all of your different heading modes there. Search for addresses, previous destinations as well. Google Maps is going to be the same thing. So there's no pinch to zoom capabilities, but you do have the option of moving around this way, recenter to you, zoom in and out this way. And then you can also press the little gear icon if you wanted to avoid certain things on the route. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries, you could look at different map colors, satellite map view to show traffic, north up, or you can mute out guidance prompts as well. And then Waze is the same idea. So nice, no pinch to zoom. You can let people know of an upcoming, either police, crash, traffic, obstacles, whatever the case may be. Press this in order to zoom in and out. See that there's a cop up ahead there. You can look for previous addresses there as well. But I mean, very straightforward. And then, I mean, so many audio applications. You can use music, podcasts that are available. Hoopla is a radio app. Live One is a music app. Like, there are so many things. But one thing to point out is that this screen does not support video playback from the factory. So you can't use YouTube specifically, like this is YouTube music, but you can't use YouTube video directly through this screen. That's like one thing I would love to see, especially when the car is parked, but that's got to do with CarPlay. But still, the screen is pretty nice. You can push there in order to get back home. You can launch back into CarPlay. And then there's also a little home button along the very bottom. So you can push that to get back home. Now, this one doesn't have factory navigation, but when you're connected to CarPlay, you could also push the map button there to launch into your previously launched map as well. Very, very useful feature. And then you can push back to get back to that split screen instead. Now, one nice thing is that on your phone, if you go to your general settings, go into CarPlay, find your vehicle, you can forget it, you can toggle off CarPlay while the phone is locked, or you can customize. So let's say if you're a bigger fan of having your podcast at the top, you also want to have Google Maps up there as well. You can do a drag and drop in order to adjust it that way. You can also push the little delete button in order to remove. So if you're not a fan of some of these things being on the screen, you can fully remove them. It does keep them toggled into the bottom though, so you could add them back in, if you wanted to. But if you've played around with the layout too much and you're not a fan, along the very top right, there's a button to reset, and that's just going to bring you right back to the factory default screen there instead for Apple CarPlay. Very straightforward. You can push the Hyundai button again there to get home. That's straightforward. If you go into your setup, device connections, you've got the phone that's been connected, and it's connected over CarPlay right now. So you can easily disconnect if you wanted to make phone calls without going through CarPlay, or music without CarPlay as well. So that's one cool thing, is that you can kind of go either or. So if you've got Android and iPhone devices connected, you could be either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but you can do a mix and match of multiple phones. You've got Bluetooth prompts, privacy information, system information, which is where you're going in order to change the vehicle name. So if you don't want it to be Kona, you want it to be Bob's Ride, Sally's Ride, whatever the case may be, that's where you're going to change it. Then there's basic phone projection settings, CarPlay, so whether or not you want to be able to use CarPlay with the phone. So if you wanted to strictly hook up over Bluetooth, you could also permanently toggle CarPlay off for your specific phone as well. So I know that's quite a little bit of info, but straightforward there, but that's how you set up an iPhone inside of the Hyundai Kona. Yeah. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So you're on the home screen there, currently connected to the iPhone though. So you can push the setup button along the very bottom right side by the tuning rocker, which is going to pull this screen up, and you're going to go device connections. From there, you've got the iPhone connected, but what I want to do is add new.
Bluetooth on your mobile device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name.
Okay. Then on their phone, you just want to connect to Kona. Pins match up. Perfect, and it supports wireless Android Auto as well. So in order to set it up, you have to hit yes there. It's just going to take a few seconds there, so it's just launching. And look at that. We are fully connected. Love it. Now the phone's also asking me, do I want to give it access to my contacts and messages? I'm saying no to that, just because again, this is not my car, but obviously if it was yours, you could give it that flexibility. But you can push the little button there in order to be able to make this true or full screen. But one nice thing, look at this, full pinch to zoom capabilities inside of Google Maps. Recenter it back on you. You can search for addresses, push along the top there in order to be able to do things like route options for avoiding motorways, toll roads, ferries, and things like that. You can also mute out alerts. So if you're coming to an upcoming turn in Google Maps, you can have nothing happen and it just shows you on the screen. You could look at your different heading options that are available there as well. Zoom in and out this way, but as I mentioned, you've also got pinch to zoom capabilities. Along the outside, you've also got your current connection, time, maps. You've also got music, your phone, and then there's also the Google Assistant. So you could push that. There's also a button on the steering wheel that you can push in order to activate your Google Assistant or your Siri Assistant. You can push this little split screen button there as well, or a button press in order to get to this setup as well. Now, one thing, this phone does have Waze installed, but as you can see there, Waze is currently not showing up. So if that's the case for you, there is a workaround in order to be able to add Waze to the screen. You'll find that walkthrough down in the description of the video, but it's relatively straightforward to be able to do. Now, one other nice thing, you've also got the flexibility to be able to customize this a little bit. So on your phone, you're going to search for Android Auto. You're going to look for Android Auto settings. You're going to go into settings. You can look at previously connected cars. You can customize the launcher as well. So as you can see there, tons of different options that are available. So what you could do is you could push this in order to remove any of these things from the vehicle. You can easily add them back in, but it's not dynamic like the iPhone side of things was. So you could move these things around, but in order to actually be able to save it, you actually have to get out of Android Auto on the vehicle, and then you have to relaunch. So I'm going to show you. So you can't just push, you can't even just do that, like push Hyundai there. And then if we go back home into Android Auto and split, so it still doesn't take the changes into effect that we've made. So on your home screen, you've actually got to go home. Actually, I guess this would be easier. Go to Setup, Device Connections. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. So we're disconnecting from the Galaxy. Reconnect to Android Auto. There we go. And then if we go back home, actually, could just suppress that, but launch into Android Auto. And there we go. So the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So it's not dynamic like it was on the iPhone side of things, but you've still got the flexibility to be able to customize this thing a little bit if you want to. And again, that's saying unsuccessful for contact downloads because I initially said no. But if you want to say yes to that one, just delete your phone from the vehicle. So you're going to go to Setup, Device Connections, and then from there you can delete the device as well if you wanted to then reconnect for it to download your contacts and messages and things like that. And then as you can see, I've got both phones connected. So you can essentially do a little bit of a mix and match. So you can either be Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You can't be both, but you can do a mix and match. So you can have one phone connected for your phone calls, one phone connected for media, and then you can do a mix and match there. And then you can also do who gets connection priority. So if there are two phones in the vehicle, who's it going to try to connect to first for each of these options? Then from there, if you wanted to delete, you can just delete, mark all, delete, and yes. And a few seconds in, and look at that. We are now disconnected from the vehicle. Now, some of these things like valet mode, diagnostics, and things like that actually require you to be in one of the other profiles. So if we change user for a second, let's just change it out to driver 1. Hello, driver 1. All right, so I'm just going to skip. There we go. So if we go valet mode, you can set a new password and enter in order to enter valet mode. So nice and difficult, 0000. Don't use 0000, make it something more challenging. But one of the benefits here is that you can see that valet mode's been activated, which means that a valet driver can't do anything on the screen until you get out of valet mode. So again, entering in that nice and difficult password unlocks the vehicle. So big benefit there, as I mentioned, is that what it's going to do is it's going to lock the screen out if you don't want people to be able to swipe around. So just general safety, that one's a good one to set up. There's also vehicle diagnostic data, maintenance information, if there are any notifications. You could also do a button press in order to get into your digital owner's manual again. So just scan, and then you're going to scan on your phone, and then series of different setup and vehicle options. So setup, actually one nice thing, if you go back, you can see there's a little search button. So you can also actually search and see what specific setting you want to go for. But if you click on vehicle, and then with driver assistance settings, so there are a ton of different options that are available. When you click on any of these ones, it essentially dives deeper into that specific setting. And then all of the settings are also lined up along the outside here. So you've got your basic driver assistance settings, so driver convenience, smart cruise control. So the smart cruise control is a great system, but you can essentially set how close or far away you want to be away from the vehicle that's in front of you. You can also set that up on the steering wheel. But if you want to walk through and actually using the adaptive cruise or the smart cruise system, you'll find that down in the description of this video. And then the acceleration or reaction speed for the adaptive cruise. So when it's going, do you want it to re-accelerate fast or slower? I'm personally a fan of having it go faster. Do you want it to be able to react faster or slower as well? So same idea. By default, I would recommend the acceleration and reaction speed are set to 5 so that there's quicker acceleration and reaction. Climate, you can have it recirculate air, you can go for ventilation, defog, defrost, and then basic climate functions there as well. Options for your lights. So ambient lighting, some versions of the Kona are going to have ambient light, some aren't. You can adjust the brightness. You can link it to the drive mode. So the color of the ambient light will be based off of the drive mode that you're in. And then there are different color choices that are available. So you could literally select your own unique color, which is so neat. Love it. Your turn signal. So as a default, it's usually set to 3. So you can have it go either 1 flash, 3, 5, or 7. I typically just leave it at that 3. Welcome light, and then headlamp delay. So when you go to lock the vehicle, the lamps stay on for 15 seconds before they turn off. Auto high beam assist. So what the high beam assist is going to do is it's going to turn the high beams on. When a vehicle's oncoming, it's going to dim them and then bring them back up again so that you're not blinding oncoming drivers. And then do you always want your interior lights to be active? Yay or nay? It does look kind of nice. So you can actually kind of see it. It's very subtle inside of the rockers there, but it actually does look kind of nice. The LED is on all the time. Door information. Do you want the vehicle to automatically lock when you start driving or enable on a certain speed or shift as well? And then from there, same idea with automatically unlock. Do you want the vehicle to unlock when you shift into the park, when you turn the vehicle off, or do you never want it to automatically unlock? That one would probably be a good safety setting to enable. Back to your door. Remote window control. So you can use the key fob in order to roll the windows down. Well, let's hop outside and I'll show you how that process works. So what you're going to do is press and hold the unlock button on the vehicle. You can see there, windows starting rolling down, but they pause because I released. So you actually have to press and hold in order for those windows to go down. So very straightforward, but a very useful one at the same time. Digital key, you have the flexibility of being able to use your phone as a smart key in some versions of the vehicle. Convenience settings, so rear occupant alert. When you go to turn the vehicle off, there's going to be a little message inside of the cluster screen telling you to check the back seats. You could turn that setting off if that drives you nuts. Service interval, oil change reminder, so if you're changing oil yourself, you can reset it back to 100. You can also disable wireless charging for your vehicle, so if you do have a wireless charge pad, you can turn that off. Auto wiper when in reverse, so if you've got your front windshield wipers going and you put the vehicle in reverse, the vehicle is automatically going to turn on that rear wiper for you. And that is the basics of your convenience settings there. But again, same thing, if you go into driver assistance, you can drive into any of these additional settings like that, or go this way there instead. But you've got some driving safety settings as well here. So forward safety is that if the vehicle recognizes a potential collision, it's going to let you know. So that one's going to keep you nice and balanced in your lane. Blind spot safety, it highlights along the side view mirrors if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side. And then safe exit is going to give you a warning if it recognizes somebody's essentially coming up behind you as you go to open up a door. Back home, there's also driver attention warning. So as you go to drive, and if you are stopped, kind of not looking, paying attention, the vehicle in front of you takes off, you're going to get a little message in your cluster screen telling you that that vehicle has driven away. Speed limit assist. So that's an interesting one. So you can set your country. So obviously currently set at Canada. So you've got Canada, US, because this is a North American spec vehicle. But you can also have it so it's going to adjust your speed when you're in adaptive cruise control based off of the posted road speed. You can get a warning or nothing will happen. I'm typically a fan of nothing happening, but that's a matter of preference. And then there's also an offset. So where that comes into play is, let's say if the speed goes from 80 down to 60, it's automatically going to drop your speed from 80 to 60 with the cruise control set up. But if you're okay with going 5 or 10 over, then it's only going to drop you down by either 5 or 10, or you've also got your minus, so it'll go the opposite way there as well. Back home from there, attention warning, which we've already seen, and parking safety, those are the ones. So you've got camera settings there, extended rear view monitor versus your parking lines. So when we shift into reverse, you can see there, those are going to be your parking lines. And then when you park, extended rear view monitor. So after you shift to drive and you start to drive away, it's going to keep the rear view on for a few seconds as well. And then you can also adjust the brightness and the contrast of your rear view camera. All right, from there, options for climate, which we've already seen some of these things. So again, you're going to see a lot of things are kind of duplicated here, and they're just laid out slightly different. So you go into your lights, you see all the light options. You go into your door, you see all of the door options. So you can get to all of these things a different way. I kind of like how Hyundai's set it up though, so that you can kind of adjust it out and look at all of these options in a slightly different and a little bit more of a unique way. But that's the basics of vehicle. Next up is going to be some sound settings. So with your sound settings, so speed dependent volume, as you're going faster, it's going to automatically increase the volume for you to offset. Startup volume max, so if you've got the volume cranked and you turn the vehicle off, when you turn it back on again, it's not going to be blaring at you. Positioning, do you want it focused on the driver, people in the back, or centered out for everybody? Tone, treble, mid-range, and bass. I've been finding that treble up a point or two and then bass cranked a couple points tends to give really good audio inside the vehicle. But that one's going to be a matter of preference. Guidance options, so 4 different volumes there. Do you want to have what level for each one, for your ringtone, for beeping? Radio noise, nothing exciting there. Driver assistant settings, you can get the warning beeps that you get. How quiet or how loud do you want them to be? Haptic warning is going to give you a little bit of a steering wheel vibration. It's honestly going to feel like there's something up with your alignment, but it is a nice way to warn you that something's going on. Drive safety priority. So what that one means is that if there's something that's coming up from a safety perspective, it's going to lower your radio volume to let you know of a potential obstacle or something that's going on from a safety perspective. For connected devices, what level do you want your media and your voice guidance to be? So if you've got a map going through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you've got the flexibility of setting how loud or how quiet all of these different options are. Love it. That's basically the audio. Device connections. So devices, we've deleted both of them we had set up. Bluetooth prompts, system information, again, going there in order to change the vehicle name. User profiles, which we've already seen, but this gives you the option of doing a boatload of other things. So you can change your driver name, you can adjust. I think that's it, yeah. So you don't have the flexibility of creating a unique image, but you can select from many of these available images for your profile. You can add in other security information. So if you don't want other drivers to be able to access your information, you can password protect it. You can link it to a Blue Link account, so your Hyundai account on your phone. And then you can also delete the profile as well. You can also adjust the screen layout, so you can have it linked to your drive mode. And then with the cluster, you can either have it as a simple or as a classic look instead. The classic one is actually kind of nice though. And then from there, so you've got it linking to the drive mode, or you can permanently lock it out to any of these options. So either style A, style B, or style C. But if you link it to your drive mode, and then down the center stack there, if you adjust your drive mode settings, you can go to any of these other options, and that's going to be either normal, sport, or snow. I personally like the way that the sport mode looks, but that one's going to come down to a matter of preference. But as I mentioned, you've got the flexibility of being able to lock it out to any of these modes permanently instead, if you want to. There's also a screensaver option. So the screensaver option, you can have either a clock or none. So if the screen's turned off, then what's going to happen is what will show up. If the screen is off, do you want it to be a digital time? Do you want it to be a watch face? Whatever the case may be. And then split screen, what information, there's not a ton, but what info do you want showing up? If you had factory navigation, that would show up as an option and other things. And then you can do a press and hold in order to adjust which one gets priority when you're in split screen. Display options there as well, so you can adjust the brightness, camera settings, which we've already seen these ones earlier. Blue light filter is a neat one because later on at night, you might just be able to make it out there, but it gets very subtle. It essentially gets rid of the blue light in the screen and makes it easier on your eyes. You can have the vehicle determine when that red light filter or the blue light filter should come on, or you could set it at a specific time instead. There are 3 unique buttons inside of this thing. So there's one down the center stack there, and then there are 2 on the steering wheel. But when you push the buttons, what happens? So you've got the main button there, and that's the one that's going to be just there. So nothing happens right now, but you could do different things. So you could have it so that the display turns off. So you push the button there and the display's off. Turn it back on again. You can have it go to your driver assistant settings, Bluetooth audio, but I think the hot button press to turn the screen off is probably a good one. And then same idea for your steering wheel buttons. You can have it go home, turn your media on or off, reject phone calls and things like that. And then your mode button is going to let you change between all of your available music modes there instead. So I usually just recommend, or whatever ones, like if you normally only listen to AM or FM, you could just select these 2. So when you press the mode button on the steering wheel, those are going to be the only ones it'll switch between. And then your steering wheel buttons, you can also have it change to your stations or the frequency. But one nice thing is that you can also do a press and hold up in order to seek stations that way through the steering wheel. You've also got cluster information. So the cluster, you can adjust the brightness, same idea, blue light filter. Obviously, we've already seen this information. Content selection, do you want that showing up, yay or nay? And do you want a welcome sound playing when you turn the vehicle on? From there, there's also additional information for Blue Link. And then a series of general settings. So you've got your basic model information, software info, system info, nothing exciting there, date and time. So you'll notice that some of these things are grayed out. And if you've ever run into a setting that's grayed out, it's because you're in the auto mode instead. So taking it out of auto mode lets you automatically set the date and time if you want to. But I personally just recommend in the auto mode. If you prefer that military time instead, so the 24-hour mode, you could switch it that way. You can adjust your time zone, and then you can also have it set up for daylight savings time, yay or nay. And I guess technically we are in daylight savings time right now, and it is technically 2:34, so that's perfect. Language, you can be English, French, Spanish, or Korean. And this is a North American spec vehicle. So the languages that are available are going to be based off of the geographic location that you purchase your vehicle. So in North America, those are going to be your 4 options. But if you were in somewhere like Ecuador, you would have different languages available instead. For keyboard languages, you've got either QWERTY or ABCD. And then how do you want the keyboard to be laid out? your units. Do you want to be in either kilometers or miles? And when you adjust that out, it actually changes up what's going on inside of the cluster for a few things. So it actually changes it between miles or kilometers, and it even changes the speed out as well when you change it from miles or kilometers. You've also got your fuel economy and a few other things. So do you want to be in kilometers, liters per 100? Or if you're in miles, do you want to be miles per gallon? All that fun stuff. From there, adjusting your tire pressure to different units. Actually, I prefer liters per 100. Media options, media off when the vehicle started up. I usually recommend, I like listening to the radio when the car turns on, so I'm going to keep that on. Do you want to continue playing the media when the vehicle's turned off? So you're going to turn the vehicle off and it'll continue playing media for you as long as this is kept on. It doesn't stay on permanently, but it at least keeps it on for a good amount of time. And then you can reset, you can delete the profile or reset all to bring everything back to the factory default screen there instead. So that's useful if you're selling the vehicle. So I know that's quite a lot of information, and that's just about everything with a few other small things. So down the center stack there, you can see that there's a volume rocker. You can push there in order to hot button press to get into your media. You can go back to the home screen there. If you had factory navigation, you could push maps. But one cool thing is, when you're connected to either Android or iPhone devices, you can push the map button down there in order to be able to hot button press and launch your maps that are on your phone. You can search for different things as well, so it's essentially bringing up the search bar that you can look through. You can hop into your media to see all of your available media that way. You've got your four-way blinkers, you can seek between songs, stations, you've got your custom button, and then you can do a hot button press in order to enter your setup screen there instead. So I know that that's a lot of information, but that's everything you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Hyundai Kona.